Hello and welcome to NDTV Profit. My name is Varun Gakhar and we're joined here by the Chairman of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, Mr. Anil Lahoti. Mr. Lahoti, thanks for joining us. Now, I would like to start off with the issue that is I think one of the primary pain points of almost all mobile phone users in our country, which is the issue of spam calls. Now, when is this menace expected to end, and does the regulator have any kind of deadline with respect to it?
You see, the spam calls and spam messages, this is a big menace to the privacy and convenience of the telecom consumers. And Trai has been regularly working on this particular subject. We can broadly see this in terms of two dimensions. One is through the registered telemarketers, and the other is by people who are not registered telemarketers but use telecom resources for making spam calls or spam messages. In respect of the registered telemarketers, Trai has a elaborate regulatory framework, and Trai carried out an exhaustive analysis on how the system of registered telemarketers was being misused by people in pushing spam calls and spam messages. So particularly in respect of the spam messages, it was found that there were lakhs of headers and content templates which had been registered by various principal entities but were not actually in use. And out of this audit, then we asked all such telecom service providers to remove all these unused headers and content templates because these were being misused for pushing spam messages. This was a huge cleanup exercise which TRAI carried out. Another thing which we found in respect of the registered telemarketers was that when a sender or a principal entity is sending a message, they use the services of one telemarketer and he uses services of another. So there is a chain of telemarketers. But when the message is delivered to the subscriber, who all were involved in delivering the message is not known and was not on record. And this vacuum was being utilized or being misused by the number of telemarketers in the chain for pushing spam messages. So Trai has mandated that each message should have a binding of the principal entity who is sending the message and every telemarketer who is there in the chain. So this was an exhaustive exercise, and I must compliment our telecom industry that they took up this challenge and they have completed the entire technical work for facilitating registration of the chain binding of each and every message that they are pushing. And now the technical part is already completed. Now it is the role of the principal entities to register their entire chain binding, which is a work in progress, and the telecom service providers are pursuing with all the principal entities and telemarketers to register the chains. We as Trai have also requested all the sectoral regulators to advise their principal entities to complete this process in time. So once this is completed, this will also lead to a significant control in the spam messages that are being pushed through the system of registered telemarketers. Okay. The other dimension is the unregistered telemarketers, or in the misuse of personal numbers for pushing calls or messages. So in respect of that, we have issued in the month of August a very stringent direction that if a unregistered number is misused for making a commercial call and complaints are received, and if the entity doesn't stop even after a warning, all their telecom resources must be disconnected, which could be running into hundreds. And not only it should be disconnected, the entity should be blacklisted, and it should not be allotted by any telecom resources by any of the telecom service providers. So this has proved to be very effective, And already within a period of less than 3 months, over 18 lakh numbers have been disconnected, and over 800 entities or individuals have been blacklisted. And you can see there is a perceptible, visible reduction in the spam calls and spam messages. There are a number of other initiatives which have been taken up by Trai. It's a huge system of spam calls which has a lot of dimensions which require to be addressed. Now, one of the initiatives that we have taken up is that we have mandated that every commercial call must be made through a 140 series number, and the normal personal number should not be utilized for this purpose. So hitherto, although the commercial entities had taken the 140 series number, the calls were not being routed through our distributed ledger technology platform. So because of which it was not traceable as to if there is any misuse of the facility. So now that transfer has also taken place. Now every 140 call is routed through the DLT platform. What it means? It means that if any consumer has registered on the do not dial registry, he or she will not receive a call from 140 series number for a commercial purpose. Now, but there is also a related challenge that the commercial entities do have to make certain calls which are genuinely required for the transactional purposes or services, which must pass through and should not be blocked. Otherwise, there could be a service deficiency. So for this purpose, we are already in dialogue with the Department of Telecommunication as well as various stakeholders involved in the system to allocate another series of numbers which will be used not for making promotional calls but for making service and transactional calls, and these calls will not be stopped on the DLT platform.
Okay, thank you, sir. But since you talked about the issue of spam messages and how an exhaustive exercise has been taken forth by the regulator, sir, these whitelisted links that you talked about, is it now safe for consumers to open that messages that contain links that are forwarded to them, or should consumers still be wary of opening links or messages which contain links?
Yeah, so very important. You see, lot of fraudsters were utilizing the facility of sending SMS to send links intended for causing fraud with the subscriber through SMS. So we have now mandated that unless a link is whitelisted by the principal entity on the telecom service provider's portal, such a message shall not pass through the DLT platform. So what does it mean? It means that all the principal entities have now whitelisted their genuine URLs or APK links or OTT links on the TSP platforms, and a message carrying those links will pass through the DLT platform. But if any message which carries a fraudulent link or a link which is not whitelisted on the TSP's DLT platform will not pass through the DLT platform, which makes the entire system of forwarding links through SMS very safe.
So essentially the consumers can now open links, and they don't need to worry about that they're going to wind up on a website that might steal their information or something.
Yes, this is true. So the consumers can now have a confidence in the SMS system.
Okay. Another point that I wanted to talk to you about was, so yesterday Minister of Communications, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, talked about dealing with the issue of drop calls and said that how we as a country want to meet the international standards for this. Now, when is the regulator expected to come up with regulations for this issue, and what kind of financial penalty is the Trai looking at?
You see, in terms of the quality of service in the telecom sector, the regulations which we were earlier having were of the years 2006, 2009 and 2012, which were though updated from time to time. they suffered with the inadequacy that these regulations were formed at a time when the telecom sector was being run with 2G or 3G services, and predominantly the service was of voice calls. Since then, the significant change has been that now we have 4G and 5G networks, and the predominant traffic is data. And also the backbone of data as well as wireline as well as wireless services has converged. So looking into it, we have now framed a comprehensive combined regulation which has already been notified, and it has become effective from 1st of October, which is a state-of-art regulation taking into account the international standards and also very detailed analysis of the technical performance of all the service providers within the country. So the service providers have already started working on the new quality of standard regulation. We have made stringent provisions for financial disincentives in case of non-compliance by the service providers. We have also given a glide path for them, because the performance parameters which have now been set are very high, and the service providers will have to upgrade their systems and do investments. So and within the glide path there are benchmarks, milestones which they will have to achieve, and there are stringent audit requirements. So the system of financial disincentive is that if a service provider defaults one time, there is a level of financial disincentive. But if the service provider defaults again in the next reporting cycle, the financial disincentive goes up, and likewise, so it will go up. So there is a incentive for so that the service provider is constantly motivated to act fast on the non-compliance. Yeah.
Okay. So as you know that we're a business news channel and that most of our viewers are very heavy on investment in stocks, I wanted to ask you, what suggestions can the regulator provide with respect to receiving investment related calls on their mobile phones, as a lot of people have fallen victim to such calls in the recent past, and in general as well? How much can the regulator protect the nation's consumers against different kinds of scam calls? What safeguards can these users exercise?
I think you have raised two topics. One is that investment calls or messages being sent to people who attract them to some very attractive promising investment with very unreasonably high profits, etc. And already the banking sector regulators and the SEBI, they have been carrying out regular educational, consumer educational campaigns, that if anybody is offering unreasonable gains or profits, then it has to be seen with suspicion and verified, cross-checked before you take any decision on that. So that is one thing. Another aspect is using the telecom resources to trap a consumer into a fraud. So which can happen by way of normally the fraudsters resort to either the emotions of greed or fear of the consumer, and either they will attract them to a very attractive offer, or they will cause fear of something, as if he has done something very wrong, or something very wrong has happened with one of his or her near and dear ones. So one thing is very clear, that if you are receiving any such call, it has to be seen with suspicion, and this is very important. Every consumer has to be aware that somebody calling and threatening somebody with certain consequences, and asking him to take certain action on the telecom resource immediately, has to be seen with suspicion, and nobody should act in haste, and must stop, think, and must know that government authorities will not call up anybody and tell that you have committed a crime and you must do this or that on the telephone itself, and otherwise some action will get taken. This is clearly a fraud, and similar other methods are being resorted to by fraudsters. They are very innovative. So people have to be very alert and cautious. And I must say that there are certain instances where calls are made on behalf of Trai saying that your number has been misused for doing certain illegal activity, etc. So I must clarify that Trai never makes any call or any message to anybody for any misuse of their numbering resource or any illegal activity in terms of any telecom activity. And any such call must be seen as a fraud and should be disconnected at the soonest and should be reported on the Department of Telecom's Sanchar Sathi portal. Yes.
Okay. So one last question. We know you've got a busy schedule ahead of you. What do you think is the most important challenge that the telecom sector is facing today, and how does the regulator plan to deal with it?
The most important thing for everybody, I think, in today's era is having affordable, accessible, and reliable broadband, so that every citizen, in whichever part of the country or whichever socioeconomic status or whichever gender he or she is able to utilize the fruits of the digital technology in terms of their social life, in terms of their economic activity, in terms of their education, learning, and also availing the host of government services which are now available through the digital platforms. So this is the most important challenge, and I think the entire government, all the regulators are constantly working on how to facilitate and make available the digital access to all of our citizens.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Lahoti, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.